Greetings and welcome to the Idyllwild Forum's interview with Dr. Nancy Waite-O'Brien. This is our third interview with mental health professionals offering their services to our mountain communities as part of the six-part mental hygiene workshop series that we're sponsoring in Idyllwild, California through the months of September and October 2022. Dr. Nancy Waite-O'Brien is a psychologist, educator, and author with over 30 years of experience in psychology and addiction treatment, both in the United States and in the Caribbean. In 2004, she was named one of the 60 most influential women in the field of addiction treatment by Counselor magazine. She wrote the introduction to Betty Ford's book, Healing and Hope, has co-authored texts on adolescent treatment and on women's treatment, taught at Chapman University in Palm Desert, California, was adjunct faculty in the Equine Assisted Mental Health concentration of the Counseling Psychology Department at Prescott College in Prescott, Arizona, and published research on shame and depression in early recovery. Dr. Waite-O'Brien was associated with the Betty Ford Center for 18 years, and in that capacity, oversaw clinical services and training for that organization. Currently, she has a private practice in Rancho Mirage, California, provides equine assisted therapy to a wide variety of clients, including women veterans, and is a consulting psychologist for the ABC Recovery Center in Indio, California. Her doctorate in psychology includes an emphasis on the treatment of addiction, and she has specialized training in equine assisted psychotherapy, hypnosis, cognitive behavioral therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, and is a practitioner of somatic experiencing, a body-based approach to treating trauma that we've also discussed in previous interviews. This Saturday, October 15th at Town Hall, Nancy will be looking at common assumptions that can make us unhappy and exploring ways to manage uncomfortable feeling. So let's start there, Nancy. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for taking some time to do this interview. I wanted to ask you, because you've actually been attending all the workshops to date, just your general impression of the workshops and the series overall.
You know, what I noticed was watching the audience and seeing people so interested in what they were being presented with, seeing them taking notes, asking questions. I mean, it just feels like each of these events has been just soaked up by the participants, and so it's been a lot of fun to be there.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And do you think there's a sense of because some of the work has been group work, right? Do you think it's building a sense of connection between participants?
You know, that you're right. I think that as soon as their group was given opportunities to talk to one another, they found similarities, support, and connection. And you could feel the excitement in the room going up as soon as there were opportunities for people to talk to one another.
So what in terms of your workshop this upcoming Saturday, what can people expect to learn and experience when they're working with you?
Well, you know, when I started thinking about what I thought might be helpful was looking back into psychology, way back into the 1970s, when there was a guy around by the name of Albert Ellis. And he was the originator of what we now practice as cognitive behavioral therapy. And his initial premise was that there are beliefs that we carry inside of us that are unrealistic in terms of how the world works. And his approach was called reality therapy, and it was about looking at these unrealistic beliefs and seeing what could change. If you change the beliefs, would you feel differently? And it was found that that did happen. If you changed the belief, and giving you an example of, sort of a simple belief, if I have the belief that I shouldn't suffer, that things shouldn't be hard for me, then every time something hard comes along, I'm going to be miserable because it feels unfair. And that comes out of that belief that I might be carrying, that I should have an easy life and I shouldn't have to struggle. But if I change the belief, even just a little bit, so that I thought, well, things will happen that are bad or uncomfortable, but I'll just manage them. So that I change it from it shouldn't happen to it will happen, then it's unlikely that I'm going to be as uncomfortable or as mad at the world if I have that belief that I shouldn't have to do hard things.
Yeah, that kind of that goes back to the Stoic philosophers and the whole idea of, kind of preparing for the worst, because, life is not always a bowl of roses or what have you.
Yeah.
How will you communicate that to the participants? And will there be an experiential aspect to the workshop?
Absolutely. I mean, often what I do is ask people, what is it that's bothering you these days? And then look behind that and see what the belief is. And so we're going to be working in pairs so people can talk to one another about the thing that's bugging them, the one thing that's really causing them to be upset. And then look behind that with somebody else to see what is the belief that I'm carrying, this person might be carrying, that's causing the upset, and could it be changed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they'll be working in pairs.
Yes.
What about for someone who, some people might feel kind of shy working in a workshop with someone they don't know that well. How does that usually work out for people that are more sensitive to being in group settings?
Generally pairs is pretty easy, because then you can choose, you don't have to bring up your darkest secrets. It could be just the one thing that's bugging you right now. And usually in these settings, I would ask people, just because you're in a group of people that you might not know, probably it's a good idea to choose something that isn't as maybe your biggest pain, your biggest loss, the most horrible thing. But you could talk about something that has been happening in your life that might even be similar to what the other person has.
Mm-hmm. So then the next topic that we have listed here is exploring ways to manage uncomfortable feeling. What are some of the techniques that people will be learning for that practice?
Well, then I'm going to shift to a different approach to therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. And this has to do with looking again at both rational thought and emotional thought. And if you look and separate those two, they're good, but they're not enough. That if I just focus on what's rational, I am ignoring my feelings. If I just look at emotions, I may not be rational. So it's looking for the space in between where we can find wisdom. It's the overlap between emotion and rational thought. Where they overlap is the possibility of finding wisdom that you could take from both sides of your thinking and find something that feels right from your insides. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so developing kind of it's like inner compass work a little bit, right?
You bet. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's really what it moves is from sort of external to what's internal. That both rational thought and emotional thought tend to be sort of energy out. And that if you take them and overlap them, you can find sort of energy in, which is a point of wisdom.
So how will that, in terms of the experiential piece of this, what does that look like in terms of what people are actually doing the exercises?
Well, that's probably, again, we'll be working in pairs.
Okay.
And ask people to sort of take that first issue that they were struggling with and then move it into this, what's your thoughts about it? What are your feelings about it? And then if you allow yourself to sit with both those, what comes up, what then emerges in wisdom. So doing that in the presence of others. We do our best in connection. And I think one of the outcomes of these workshops is learning how valuable it is to be part of a community, to be in connection with others. And so I'm hoping that these little moments give us the experience of allowing yourself to be open and honest in the presence of another human being.
That sounds great. Yeah, that's very much what we're hoping people will get out of this. It's a real strength that Americans learn to be as individualistic as we do. And it's also, but it can also be challenging, and that we can often feel that we're in it all on our own. And learning these tools and learning them with others, I can see the power of that.
Yeah.
So anything else as far as the upcoming workshop that you'd like to get across, or?
No, what I'm hoping is lots of people come, because I think it can be helpful, and I think it's going to be fun as well.